Why I'm leaving 100% veganism after 13 years, and you might too after this. So yeah, kind of obnoxious title, maybe not super surprising. This is Ali Tabrizi. He is the director of I can't even say it, Seaspiracy. I remember the video I made on it. I think I called it Sucks or Kind of Sucks. One comment was like, I just can't forgive them not calling it conspiracy. I guess because there was cowspiracy, so they wanted to, I don't know. But yeah, conspiracy is much better.
The reason why I'm making this video is because I actually think, as someone who lived and breathed veganism and promoted it to many, many people, I think I've been responsible for actually spreading a kind of dangerous lie that I want to rectify in this video and set the record straight for any people I've influenced who have found themselves in a position that they didn't expect themselves to be, failing on the vegan diet or whatever it may be. And in order to set this out, you're going to really have to read the article in my Substack.
So I've watched the entire video 2 times and I've read the Substack piece, and there really isn't much difference between the two. He does talk about the definition, the Vegan Society definition of veganism in the article and not in the video, but that's pretty much it. I still don't know what he means by dangerous lie. I don't know.
I have been a vegan for 13 years. I became vegan when I was 18 years old, approximately in very early 2012. And it has been one of the things about me as a person which has really defined my identity for a lot of people. I was very involved in the early kind of vegan activist movement in the UK back in 2015. I wore vegan activist t-shirts, vegan activist hoodies, went to protests, went to rallies, filmed the slaughter of animals extensively. You don't get more vegan than me over the last 13 years. I really challenged people to find someone that was more vegan than me.
I get his point here, but I don't, it's just not a good look. It's certainly not a good way to start the video. Real vegans, see what I did there? Real vegans don't prop up their veganism in that way. Obviously, I'm joking about the real vegan thing, but veganism is an ethical position, and ethics isn't really focused on the individual. It's not really about whether you think you're a good person. Even though the stereotype is that vegans only really care about moral superiority, I don't think that's true for most vegans. Their veganism isn't about them. It's about doing what's right. It may seem like I'm making a bigger deal out of this than I should, but I think it's necessary given how he talks about other vegans throughout the video and how he talks about himself as a vegan.
A Pharisee and a tax collector both went into the temple to pray. And the Pharisee walks in and he goes to God, thank you, God, for, I'm so thankful that I'm not like that other man over there. I'm so just, I'm so awesome. I give tithes of everything I own, and I'm not an adulterer. I'm not this. I fast twice a week. I'm this and that. Whereas the tax collector doesn't even raise his eyes, and he beats his chest and he just says, God, have mercy on me, a sinner. The tax collector goes back to his home justified, whereas the Pharisee goes back home condemned because of his prayers were tainted with his pride and his arrogance. And I started to realize that for myself, I'll speak for myself here, I know which one of those two people I was more like. And it wasn't the tax collector. Me and all my vegan clothing, following the vegan rules 100% for the last 13 years, judging and condemning other people for not being vegan and claiming myself to be more morally superior, started to kind of gross me out, actually.
To me, it sounds like he thinks vegans are jerks because he was a vegan jerk. And jerks, their friends tend to also be jerks.
I've actually found that vegans are the most reluctant to donate to animal charities a lot of the time.
So maybe that was his experience because that was him. Nice people don't usually want to hang around douchebags. Anyway, he's no longer vegan. Why? Well, he explicitly says it's nothing to do with health. Instead, he no longer believes veganism is always the best way to help animals. He thinks there are many instances, in which buying the animal counterpart is actually better. He says this all started a year ago with a camping trip, he and his family, and he wanted to bring marshmallows because that's an important part of the camping and stuff. He unfortunately could not find any near him, so they had to drive 30 minutes to a specialty store. It was the small, like Dandy's bag, right? The 10-ounce bag for $16. I'm assuming, since he says Australian dollar, so that's about $10.50 here. There was toll booth both ways, so he said that was another like $11, $12, all for a small bag of marshmallows that apparently weren't even good. In the article, he mentions them being like smashed together. I used to see this a lot with Dandies. I really don't anymore, at least for the big ones. Mine stay apart. It's the little ones. Once you open them after a few weeks, they really do just start to smush together. Actually, I've had these open for weeks and they're perfectly fine.
I started to think, well, surely if I would have just hypothetically bought the animal gelatin marshmallows at the local supermarket for, $2.50, without spending all the fuel and toll bridge fees, and all the money I spent, not even if I gave all of it to an animal sanctuary, even if I just gave a couple of dollars that I saved to an animal sanctuary, surely that's going to do more tangible, measurable good.
Many of you will not be surprised to learn that I mostly agree with this. Veganism is a good heuristic. It's right almost always. Almost always choosing the vegan option is the better choice. But there are edge cases where maybe there's just not much of a difference, or even choosing the non-vegan option could be better. My favorite example is coffee creamer. I think I've said this numerous times on the channel, but the big brand, the Coffee Mate brand, has virtually no milk in it. It's all like soybean oil and sugar and less than 2% milk and other stuff. So refraining from buying this, as I do, I only buy vegan creamers, are you really sending the message that you don't like the tiny bit of dairy that's in there when you buy like an oat creamer or whatever? There are so many reasons people could choose something else, right? Maybe they just don't like the artificial flavor. So in that case, yeah, maybe save money, buy the cheap Coffee Mate and give the rest to charity, maybe. Another example, I recently accidentally bought cereal with lanolin. We usually buy the Quaker Oat Squares. Kroger has a version, but that one has vitamin D. It doesn't say the source of it, but I'm assuming lanolin. I didn't figure this out until I had already opened the box, and at that point, I didn't want to return it. I thought the better choice would be to just eat it myself instead of returning it, having it thrown away, just to get my $3 back. So I get where he's coming from, and I do agree that buying the gelatin marshmallows could be better, but you really cannot say for sure. And there's a third option. You could just not. You could just not buy the marshmallows. It's kind of funny to me that Mr. You don't get more vegan than me wouldn't choose that option. The vegan ones are just too expensive. I don't want to spend all that time and money, going to get them. So we'll have something else yummy on our trip. Or acknowledge it for what it was, like a silly one-off thing, and try to be more prepared next time. Or make your own. It's pretty simple. You could say it takes time, but it took quite a bit of time to just go get the marshmallows. Or if he's really set on getting those marshmallows, go to the store, but also stock up on other stuff that you need. Maybe look at what other stores are in the area. Maybe you can stock up on stuff there, right? So you're not just spending the whole trip just to get a bag of marshmallows. My point is that it's not vegan marshmallows versus gelatin marshmallows. Like, we're almost basically never are we limited to only two options. With the cereal, I could have tried to give it away instead of eating it myself. Maybe that would be better. There are like 100 different options he could have chosen. And to be clear, I'm not chastising him for choosing to get the vegan marshmallows, not at all. But to present this as like clearly only two sides, get the vegan or get the gelatin, is pretty silly. Also, he keeps saying animal sanctuary and not animal charity, and actually like equates them in the article. Giving to an effective charity is one thing, like they actually do outreach, but giving to a sanctuary, a rescue where you're really only helping a few animals, unless they also do outreach, right? Maybe they have a large social media presence, but I don't think most do. I don't think that's a strong argument for getting the gelatin marshmallows. And even if giving to an animal charity, even one of Animal Charity Evaluator's top picks, that's not a guarantee. There's always a risk with offsetting. Maybe, possibly, maybe, like, possibly, maybe. I'm going to be saying that a lot in this video, and that is my, like, ultimate point in all of these little edge cases. It's not like, oh, for sure, getting the non-vegan is better. That's crazy that he would say that, honestly, with nothing to back up what he's saying, by the way. His whole video basically is anecdotes. Because there are so many factors we just don't know, it makes more sense to me to play it safe and to get the vegan marshmallows, or don't get any marshmallows, or make them yourself.
When it comes to things like gelatin, it's really an afterthought of the animal agriculture industry. It's not the thing that the industry hinges on. It's not the thing that it gets most of its profits from. It's not the things justifying the entire industry. It really is a byproduct, as much as vegans like to deny that. It really is a byproduct of the industry.
I'm super surprised to hear a 13-year vegan, not just a vegan, but like a prominent activist, say something like this, make this sort of argument. Being a byproduct does not mean purchasing that byproduct is consequence-free. The gelatin industry is an industry. It's a huge industry. It is used in so many foods. It's used in inedible things as well, like cosmetics, and it is certainly not given away for free. Virtually all animal ag waste products, gelatin, feathers, parts used for pet food, these are sold. They are helping to make the animal agriculture industry viable. Without them, without leather, feathers, again, all these different things, the cost of meat would increase and some people would choose not to buy it. So yes, purchasing gelatin supports factory farming. It supports animal exploitation. It's definitely not vegan, and it's definitely not consequence-free.
The amount of gelatin that we're talking about here is so trivial, it's laughable. In order to create 100 grams of marshmallows, you only need 1 gram of gelatin. It goes a long way. And so in a packet that's 300 grams, you're looking at 3 grams of gelatin. In terms of creating a kilo bag of marshmallows, you know how marshmallows are quite light. A kilo bag, you're looking at 10 grams of gelatin.
Like the creamer, marshmallows contain very little gelatin. I think it's less than 2%. But unlike the creamer, I think buying the Dandy's marshmallows does send a message, because if you're not buying regular marshmallows, there's only one reason, basically. You don't want the gelatin, right? Either for vegan reasons or religious reasons. That's why you're spending more for the Dandies. And we are seeing more and more like fruit snack brands labeling their products as gelatin free. So clearly it does matter. It matters enough for them to decide to market their products as gelatin free. But yes, it is a tiny amount of gelatin, and I would assume this is a pretty infrequent purchase. You know, I have 3 kids. They all love marshmallows, but even still, I think I buy them like 3 to 4 times a year, maybe. The vegan ones, the Dandies, to be clear, which brings me to another counter to buying the gelatin marshmallows, possibly the most important one. Does it really end with gelatin marshmallows? For the ultra rational, sure. Like, I can imagine someone seeing Ali's bell curve here and saying like, yeah, I can just not worry about the fringes, you know, buy gelatin marshmallows, cookies with tiny amounts of milk, whatever, and then keep all the rest, the really important stuff, vegan. I have no doubt some people do this, but I also have no doubt that for other people, animal products just kind of keep creeping up. Maybe you start having eggs once a week. What's the harm? Maybe you start having meat once a week. It's only once a week. What's the harm? And hey, you know, you really like cow's milk better than oat milk in your cereal, and that's just once a day. What's the harm? This sort of slippery slope, kind of fallacious seeming argument has been levied against me pretty much any time I've said like eating non-vegan products occasionally is not a big deal. And I've kind of acknowledged it, like, yeah, it could be a problem, but I wasn't totally convinced until it happened to me. Many of you know that we avoid palm oil in our foods. We don't like buy it from the grocery store. Any cheeses, butters, or whatever with palm, we don't buy. If we go out to a restaurant, right, we're not like, oh, does this have palm? The cookies that come with my kids' veggie grill meal, you know, we don't worry about that sort of thing. So that was the deal until Halloween. A lot of the vegan candy contains palm, like Skittles, which are like the best. So for Halloween, I was like, let's just make this not palm oil free, right? So we can have more variety and get the Skittles. And so like, I can have some Skittles. So my now 6-year-old, turns out really love Skittles. And I was like, well, I don't want them to get them only once a year. So like, maybe I get them sometimes for Sunday sweets. And like, maybe I have some because they're really good. And so this was just kind of happening without me really noticing until just not this past week, but I think the week before, I went to Grocery Outlet and they had a bag of Laffy Taffy. And I was like, ooh, damn, I love Laffy Taffy. Why don't I buy Laffy Taffy more often? And I bought the Laffy Taffy. And it wasn't till I was at home that I went, oh yeah, palm oil. That's why I don't buy them. It made me realize I was no longer looking for palm oil in foods anymore. It just wasn't even really on my radar because it had just kind of become part of my diet. It's not something I ever thought that I personally would succumb to, and I totally did. So yeah, I could buy the gelatin marshmallows. I mean, no, my kids would be very upset. I could eat them, I guess, although I don't really like marshmallows. Point is, I don't have much of an issue with gelatin marshmallows, but I'm not going to buy them because if I did, where would it stop? I don't know. And also gross. To be fair, I am grossed out by gelatin in stuff now. I think I've talked about this before. Just in the last few years, I've really become grossed out by stuff that previously did not really bother me. I guess that's just a consequence of being vegan for so long. Oh, and one more thing, just kind of an emotional thing, but I thought I'd mention it. Like, I don't know, if it were me and my friends being eaten, I don't think I would enjoy hearing, well, there's only a little bit of you in here. And the human-free marshmallows are just so expensive. I don't know. I feel shitty.
And you might be wondering, okay, Ali, we get your point, marshmallows, but they're not really that important in people's diet. Why don't you just leave it? Teach your kids that their taste buds aren't more important than an animal's life, yada, yada, yada. I get all that.
Maybe don't yada, 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 like the core of veganism. Like animals matter more than our taste buds. That's like the whole damn thing.
If I could tell you that you could save the lives of 10 animals by eating just an egg, would you do it? For me, the answer is, well yes, actually. I'm of the position that if I can save 10 animals by eating an egg, by having a chocolate bar with some milk in it, by having some marshmallows with some animal gelatin in it, I think that's the better choice to make here. Vegan abolitionist attitudes to this is usually to brush it off as some kind of unrealistic hypothetical that has no bearance in the real world. Well, it turns out that analogy actually hits the nail on the head when it comes to the daily choices that vegans are making and the opportunity costs to their decisions.
I've heard something like this before, I believe from Tobias Linyard. I still don't know how to say his name. I have his book, How to Create a Vegan World. It's excellent. But he made a similar sort of argument. I think it was with burgers, right? Eat one burger to save multiple animal lives. But he's not saving animal lives by choosing gelatin marshmallows, nor is he saving animal lives by eating cow's cheese. And yes, he does make this argument. He does equate the guarantee of 10 animal lives saved by eating an egg with buying cow's cheese.
Vegan feta cheese here in Australia for a block about this big is $9. Now, the equivalent dairy option made from either goat's milk or something is $3. So you're looking at least a 3 times price increase. I think sometimes the vegan block maybe actually you get less of it than the regular kind.
Not to undermine his point here, and I'll talk more about price and stuff in a minute, but I was really curious about feta in my area. So here at my Fred Meyer, it is almost the same price. I was so shocked to see this. So Via Life, 8.1 ounces, $6.49. Follow Your Heart feta crumbles, 6 ounces, $5.99, and there's a $1 coupon right now, so $4.99. The store brand non-vegan feta is 6 ounces, $4.99. So it's the same price with the coupon. Now there is this other, regular goat. What is feta? Is it goat's milk? I don't know, whatever. There is this one here that's a little more expensive, but right now it is buy one, get one free. So that makes it $3.75 per 6 ounces. But still, I was really pleasantly surprised to see how close the prices are here. That's awesome. Now, on the other hand, Dandy's Marshmallows, which I do have access to, they're at my Fred Meyer, 5 times the price. It's a small company, so that's not too surprising. If we look at, again, other gelatin-free stuff like the fruit snacks, the Mott's brand, that's a huge brand, and their gelatin-free fruit snacks are very cheap.
I remember in the UK, before we left, the vegan Kit Kat came out, and the price difference was just insane side by side with the regular Kit Kats that I used to grow up eating, as a kid. Now, a vegan will often say, well, that's just because these are new items on the market. There's not enough demand for it. Once the demand increases, then the price will eventually go down. I think that's actually usually the exception to the rule, whereas the rule generally has been that prices haven't necessarily come down. They've either stayed the same or actually have gone up in price. Now, one quick example of this from memory is Oatly barista milk. When that came out, it was awesome. I used to drink it all the time. It was around £1.50 for a litre, which was a little bit more expensive, but it tasted amazing. About 8 years ago, it was £1.50. Today, They sell for around £2.50, maybe even £3 in certain supermarkets.
Price of almost everything has gone up, to be clear. He does briefly mention inflation, kind of like pushing it aside, brushing it off.
It also doesn't help that we've had a lot of inflation since COVID.
But it's pretty important. And again, there are quite a few examples of prices being close. The feta cheese, actually a lot of vegan cheese. And I buy vegan cheese. I just did not notice this. I mean, I'm not regularly checking the prices of animal stuff, I guess. But yeah, if you look at shredded cheese, Daya cheddar, 7.1 ounces, $3.99, actually $2.49 with the $1.50 coupon. Kroger shredded cheddar, 8 ounces, $2.33. So vegan is still more expensive, but not by much. And you're thinking, okay, coupon, but how often are those even around? They're not rare at all. I shop at Fred Meyer every single week. I look at the coupons every single week on the app. And I would say for vegan cheese in particular, they are pretty much constant. They're usually rotating, like the Violife will be on sale and then the Daya will be on sale. Yeah, very common for these cheeses to be on sale. Oh, and Kroger does have their own vegan cheese, $3.99 for 8 ounces. It is not very good, to be fair. Vegan meats are on sale all the time too, especially Beyond, Impossible, Morningstar Farm. Beyond Meatballs right now have a $2 coupon, so 10 ounces for $4.29. Kroger Meatballs, 26 ounces, $6.49. Beyond Meat is still more, but certainly not 3 times, not even double the price. Oh, Breyers. Breyers oat milk ice cream is the same damn price as their regular cow's milk ice cream, and it's almost always on sale. And availability is just way better than it used to be. I mean, 90% of this stuff, I would say, was not even in grocery stores when I went vegan. But yeah, it's still fringe. Like, stuff is still going to be more expensive for a while. Maybe he believed some of the hype that was making it seem like in, 3 years' time, vegan stuff's going to be cheaper or something, but no. No. And just an anecdote, given Ali's video is basically all anecdotes. I buy a lot of vegan mock meats and cheeses and ice creams and all that sort of stuff for myself, for my family of 5. Yet we do not spend a lot on food. I just checked the USDA low-cost food plan, and we spend less than that for a family of 5. It's definitely possible to still regularly enjoy the specialty stuff, especially if you shop sales.
The idea that just wait, hold fast, vegans, eventually you're going to cause the prices to decrease, is built on a huge naive assumption that given enough time, given enough vegan documentaries, given enough social media posts and campaigning about going vegan, that the world or any particular country will eventually become vegan, and then the prices will just be like they are for the animal equivalent. This is not true. I gave a talk at a vegan event in 2023 about why the world is not going vegan.
So it's one thing to say, be skeptical, right? I can agree with that pretty much 100%. But it's a whole different thing to say it's not true with no proof whatsoever other than, oh, I did a talk about it. I actually made a video about this recently that I really enjoyed making and I'm really proud of. It's called What Happened to the Vegan Hype. So I think a much more accurate way to look at growth is to compare today to 10 years ago. So not 2020, but 2015. Did we have major brands like Oscar Mayer and Kraft partnering with vegan companies? Did we have vegan nuggets with Disney on the packaging? Did we have vegan Hershey's, vegan Breyers, a vegan Whopper? Did we have vegan nuggets served in schools? Did we have plant-based as the default in hospitals? Did we have vegan meats reaching price parity with animal meats? Did we have a vegan grilled cheese restaurant? Not a grilled cheese restaurant that has vegan options, but an all-vegan grilled cheese restaurant. Did we have multiple universities researching plant-based protein? Did we have multiple governments investing in plant protein and cultivated meat? 10 years ago, could you imagine a vegan gluten-free brand being acquired by Pepsi for $1.2 billion? So much has changed, so much innovation is happening, and not just with the finished products that we see in store. Raw ingredients too, like pea protein, compounds that could drastically improve the texture of plant-based products. I love looking at Google Trends, so you can search the word vegan and see, interest over time. If you set it to 5 years ago, doesn't look great, right? But if you set it to 20 years ago, completely different story. Veganism is a long game. It's not something we're really going to be rewarded for. I don't like wording it that way. I don't think any of us are expected to be rewarded, but yeah, we're not going to see the fruits of our labor really probably at all. Some stuff has improved, some stuff is going to continue to improve in our lifetime, but advocating for farmed animals is going to be necessary for a long time.
The other thing about dairy in the case of cheese is that there are so many subsidies at play with the dairy industry that the promise that there is a vegan supply and demand chain of events, a sort of domino effect where vegans create more demand, the supply increases and price goes down, is not something that actually works, because we're not in a free market by any means, especially when it comes to dairy. Around the world, particularly in the United States, but also elsewhere, the price of dairy is sort of set by the government. There are government subsidies, incentives for producers to produce a lot of it, and they get paid for the extra that they produce, regardless of whether there's any consumers for it.
So this is just strange. It's really strange to hear him, on the one hand, talk about all of the different, things that go into vegan marshmallows, and like theoretically there could be a situation where the non-vegan version is better. It seems like he's really thinking about these issues. But on the other hand, this sort of thing about the cheese shows that he's not really thinking much at all. We should buy cow's cheese because subsidies exist today? What does he think will happen if more and more people buy vegan cheese instead? We're just going to continue to have subsidies. Governments are just going to continue to stockpile this cheese just because. I mean, for a while, yeah, that will happen because change takes time, but inevitably that practice will end. Inevitably, when it is no longer political suicide to end these subsidies for farmers because the populace is like, yeah, factory farming is shit, it's terrible, subsidies will end. And who knows, maybe we will subsidize like healthy foods instead. A girl can dream. But again, this is not happening overnight. This is probably not happening within my lifetime.
I've seen countless street interviews now from very well-known vegan activists who, speak to a mother who's pushing a pram. She might be carrying a baby in one hand, one toddler's running around, she's got a baby in the pram. And she's said, I'd love to go vegan. I reduce wherever I can, but I just can't do it because I find it too difficult. It's too expensive. And she will inevitably be given this slogan from the vegan activist that's been rehearsed 100 times, which is rice and beans. Rice and beans are really, really cheap. Don't you know that all the poorest people in the world eat rice and beans? Why don't you just eat rice and beans? Almost every instance I can think of a kind of career vegan activist that I know of does not live on rice and beans. If you take all the vegans in the world, you're probably looking at 0.00001% of the vegans who are choosing to live this kind of whole foods, no oil kind of approach to like literally living off rice and beans, and who knows how good their health is long term.
This is a pretty disingenuous straw man. I say disingenuous because there is basically no way Mr. Level 5 Vegan doesn't know the actual argument for rice and beans. No one who says rice and beans means eat exclusively rice and beans. They mean base your diet on rice and beans because they're cheap, full of calories. You can still criticize this. Yes, I've done so in the past. And running up to a lady, single mom or whatever he said, with children and saying rice and beans, like maybe not a super convincing argument. But this whole thing seems to me like he just does not want to represent vegans accurately, which is very concerning.
I actually don't think that opting for the vegan option on the fringes of that bell curve are necessarily doing any good for animals because of the opportunity cost that you've just lost to make a better impact elsewhere, whether that be donating some of the money you saved from buying the vegan marshmallows and actually giving some of that money to an animal shelter or a political party to end subsidies. That's an opportunity cost that you just missed because you wanted to get the $16 bag of marshmallows like I did.
Maybe I've advocated for offsetting in the past in certain situations, particularly cats. If you have cats and you feed them meat, that's a good example. But in this case, buying cow's cheese and then donating the rest, is that a realistic expectation? Or is it like the animal product creep I talked about earlier, right? Where you slowly eat more and more animal products because they're just food now. Maybe at first you donate the savings, but then life gets in the way, right? There's other stuff to pay for. You've got kids' equipment for soccer. You've got the car broke down. Switch 2 is out. Once someone is so comfortable regularly eating animals, are they really going to care enough to donate money, more and more money, because they're eating more and more animal products? Like, no, I don't think so.
There are tons of other examples where we have mutual relationships where it's not exploitative. And I think rescuing a chicken from a life in a factory farm or elsewhere and giving it safety of your garden where it can roll around, dust bathe, eat any of the critters on the ground, eat some of your food waste and have a good life, and you just take an egg from it that they're not going to be interested anyway. I mean, come on, that seems like one of the best lives that a chicken can live in the life of all chickens ever.
Many of you will not be surprised to hear that I agree with pretty much everything he says here. I've talked about backyard hens for years. I see no issue with caring for a rescue hen and eating her eggs. But where he then takes this is just so silly. Another example of thinking very deeply, but not really at all.
So what is the alternative to an egg for a vegan? The answer is tofu. Tofu requires a field, and a field requires for the trees to be destroyed or cut down. You now need the equipment used to till the field, and yes, insects might get killed in the process, small mammals might get killed, sure, that happens in a lot of different forms of agriculture. Once you harvest the beans, you need to take it to a factory for processing. That factory also needs to be built using a lot of resources, a lot of machinery. Workers need to work in that factory. Those workers are not vegan. The wages that a vegan is helping to pay for by the demand for the tofu is going to pay for a worker who's eventually going to buy animals to eat anyway. So there's that as well. The tofu isn't usually produced in your own country, or those beans at least, so they need to be shipped around the world. Once the tofu is produced, it needs to be packed in plastic. It needs to be refrigerated in the place that it's being produced, on the vehicle that's being transported on, in the shop that's holding it, and then at home. So you've got also refrigeration, you've got electricity, you've got transport, and you've got land impact, and so on. Side by side with an egg from a chicken that was rescued in your garden, eating bugs on the ground, or eating scraps of food that you left behind, producing an egg. Which one's more ethical?
He's making it sound like you'd get the chickens and just put them in your yard. There you go. And then go and collect their eggs. I have 8 hens currently, and I spend about $35 on feed per month. It's winter, so only 1 hen is laying, and we get 5 to 6 eggs per week. In the summer with 8 hens, I average 5 eggs per day. So let's say you get 8 hens and light them, allowing winter laying. Ooh, that sounds ethical. And let's say none of them get sick or die, and let's say you can get cheaper feed than me, $25 a month, and that's not even counting what it takes to get a coop run up and going. $1,000 isn't uncommon. And then they stop laying every day in their second year, and you have to get more chickens. Maybe you eat the older ones, but processing is expensive if you lack the skill and equipment, and your kids have named them. So maybe you keep the old ladies, but then feed is more, or you decide to free range them to reduce reliance on feed, but that increases risk of predation and you start losing hens. Get chickens anyway. They're lovely. Pretty much every post in this thread is like that. It's like, ignore the financials. That's not why you do this. Just get chickens because they're adorable. And this doesn't take into account like veterinary care. Do you actually have a vet who is familiar with chickens, who knows how to help them if they're sick? Do you have enough room for them? Right? I have a neighbor who has like 6 or 7 chickens, I think. It's just like a small area in their front yard, and it's really not a lot of space. I don't know. It does not seem nice to me. How much time are you going to spend with them? Or are you going to just put them in your yard and only interact with them when you want an egg? Seems kind of shitty. But if you're doing the opposite, if you're spending lots of time with them, well, opportunity cost. What else could you do with that time? You could be working and donating the money to charity. And how many eggs are you even eating? 1 a day? Please don't do that. Your health matters too. And another thing, by not buying the tofu, you are not participating in the market. You're not signaling the need for more plant-based foods. If you're just eating eggs from your backyard, you're really not saying anything to the market. You're definitely not furthering veganism.
Now, I still eat tofu. I love tofu. I don't think I'm going to ever stop eating tofu. But compared to an egg, I'm sorry, but the backyard egg is more superior to this. Basically, every single food a vegan eats, compared to that backyard egg, is just going to fall short in terms of its impact, its environmental or animal ethic impact.
From the man who said nothing about cost of feeding the chicken, cost to set up, setting up the coop, the time spent. He does not mention any of these, and yet still feels confident saying that backyard eggs are better than tofu. Hopefully you can see my issue is really not with backyard hens or gelatin marshmallows. My issue is with his confidence. He is so sure the gelatin marshmallows are better. He is so sure the backyard eggs are far better, far superior. He's so sure most vegans don't donate to charity because the ones he knew didn't. He's so sure he's thinking deeply about these issues. He's clearly not. It's one thing to say there could be instances where eating non-vegan stuff is better, has a better outcome, possibly. Sure, I agree with that. It's a completely different thing to say with 100% certainty that backyard eggs are better than tofu and to chastise vegans who disagree with him, which is really what this video is to me. Again, dangerous lie. If Ali was like, hey, I got some backyard hens, or I'm thinking about getting some because I really think it's more environmentally friendly, I think it'll be better than buying the tofu I currently buy and eat for breakfast or whatever, like, cool, interesting, whatever, just watch your cholesterol, right? That would be like my only response. And maybe just to say, hey, have you thought about all these other things too? But to come across like we're all stupid, like the real vegans are just all stupid for choosing not to house chickens and eat their eggs, it just sucks, man.
I really began to understand or question this idea that in order to live a good and moral life, it required reading food packaging labels.
If this is truly how he views veganism, like maybe he was never really vegan. But like seriously, this will probably be the only time I ever unironically say that. But like this comes across as it's just a diet to me, which is not veganism. I'm sorry that veganism requires analyzing what we eat, but that's just where the cruelty lies. To reduce it to reading food packaging labels is just so it's like Piers Morgan shit, right? Like I can picture him so clearly in my head saying exactly that. In order to lead a good and moral life, you have to read food packaging labels. Bollocks. That came out worse than I could have even imagined. I'm impressed.
Reducing a person's goodness down to what they eat is just something that I can't stand by anymore.
I'm glad to hear it. Also, it has nothing to do with veganism. It has everything to do with him being a jerk, or former jerk, maybe. I have never reduced someone's goodness down to what they eat. And I would guess most vegans do not do that, seeing as most of us have friends, family, we have people we love who are not vegan, and we still love them and spend time with them. Like, this was a you problem, man. So finally, we get to what he's actually eating.
But really, my diet hasn't changed very much at all. I think the only thing I'm regularly eating now, which is not vegan, these oat and honey bars, which are like these breakfast granola bars. I don't know what they're called, Nature's Valley or something, which I've started eating and I'm happy to eat them. They're really nice. And the reason why we started buying them as a family is because my son goes to a kindergarten, and this year they've had a child that has a severe peanut allergy. And in order to avoid cross-contamination with my son's packed lunchbox, all the kids have been asked not to bring in items containing peanuts or peanut butter. And so we went to the supermarket to try and find a vegan, like date bar, kind of Cliff Bar type option that didn't have any nuts in it. And there were literally nothing there. I think there might have been some options that were extremely expensive. And it was either buying the extremely expensive option or asking my very pregnant wife of now nearly 3 kids to hand make date bars every week when she doesn't have enough time or energy to do that, or just buy the product that was next to it that was actually, I think, a bit cheaper, and has a bit of honey in it. I thought, well, let's just get the one with honey in it.
So a bunch of Cliff Bars don't contain peanuts. I'm not sure why he couldn't find those, but again, Australia, I'm not sure exactly what they have. They do have the may contain allergy warning, but the Nature Valley, the honey and oat ones that he does buy, those have that too. Most Lara bars don't contain peanuts, but again, I don't know what they have in Australia. Regardless, I thought they're for his kid, so why is he eating them? I think because he just doesn't care anymore. It's very sad. Honeybees are not treated well. It's very sad.
Seeing as I've got, a young son, and seeing as he is invited to birthday parties, and seeing as they're not vegan, there's very often the case that he gets a party bag, or it's a kid's birthday at school and that he's been given some sweets or some cake. And we've been raising our kids vegan, and now it's like, you know what, son, like, if you want a piece of that cake at school, you go for it, man. You go for it. And like, we just don't even talk about it now. It's just like, yeah, that's absolutely fine. So we're very, very flexitarian when it comes to that kind of stuff.
I get that. You know, social situations can be tricky. I think reasonable people can disagree here. We personally don't let our kids eat non-vegan stuff. I put that in quotes because our older kids are really advocating for themselves now. Definitely my 8-year-old, like they would just be so upset just for themselves. They would be so upset if they ate animals, especially anything with bugs. They love bugs. And they're not very like food motivated. They never tell me when there are snacks or something at school that aren't vegan and there's no option for them. I have to like ask them and they're like, oh yeah, I didn't have anything. It's like, oh my God, well, I should make sure you have something. No, that's fine. My 6-year-old is like me, really loves sweets. Just did a all about them student thing that every kid gets to do. And it was like, my favorite food is candy. Is candy really a food? They were like, yes. And I was like, maybe you want to choose something else? No. But even they are getting to that point of advocating for themselves. I just found out, so sweet. I just found out there was something at school where they were handing out suckers and my 6-year-old didn't know if they were vegan or not and said, no, thank you. I found this out from my 8-year-old. I did not tell them to do that. I've explicitly told them like, hey, don't worry about stuff like that. You're definitely not going to get in trouble or anything if you do eat something that you're not sure about. Like, that's up to you. I just want them to be aware that a lot of stuff has milk and egg, gelatin and stuff in it just for their own sake, right? They did it like just for them because they didn't want to eat animals. Like, I'm so proud. Now for my 3-year-old, basically a baby, right? They're a baby till they're like 5. We do make sure everything they get is vegan. We want to make sure our kids learn that their taste buds are not as important as an animal's life. Yada, yada, yada. So that's what we do, at least currently. Who knows? You know, things could change in the future. But the way I see it is like my kids will have plenty of opportunities when they grow up to eat all the animals if they decide to do that. I wanted to leave this for the end so as not to poison the well, but I do think it's important. So I was watching this with partner and he mentions Christianity like 2 times in the video. And so I just joked like, maybe that's the real reason he went Christian and couldn't square Christianity and veganism. And that's really why he's eating animal products again. Turns out that maybe isn't too far off. I saw this comment and went and checked his other videos on the channel. And yeah, he's definitely moved to the right and like not a little bit. Yes, that is anti-abortionist Joanna Howe, who is known for either not understanding abortion termination statistics or deliberately lying about them to push this anti-abortion narrative. And yes, that is a baby photoshopped into a medical syringe trash can. I think it's important to mention this because, you know, most people want to conform. They want to feel part of their group. They want to feel fully a part of their group, right? And like pretty much fully agree on things. That feels good. It's not fun to be part of something, but not quite part of it. And let's be real, conservatism, veganism, they don't really go together. I know there are conservative vegans. Many of you have told me that you are conservative. I hear you, I believe you, but most vegans are not conservatives and few conservatives favor veganism. Being a meat-eating, anti-woke, anti-abortion family man probably feels a lot better than staying vegan. I hesitated to include this part because, you know, it is speculation on my part, but you know, given how surface level his arguments really are, ignoring the true costs of chickens, of like having a pet, eating the honey bars that are just for his kid, the overall negative way he talks about vegans, the overall negative way he talks about vegan substitutes, like he calls like mushroom leather ridiculous. As someone pointed out in the comments, like Mr. No one is as vegan as me calls chickens it.
Giving it safety of your garden, where it can roll around, dust bathe.
The yada, 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 like it all. I think it's more likely than not this is the story here. He found a new group and wants to fit in. And Burnout too, Colleen Patrick Goudreau has a really good podcast episode on this. I think it was on like specifically about Miley Cyrus and the response to Miley Cyrus no longer being vegan, people saying she was never really vegan, she never really cared about animals, and Colleen says, or maybe she was vegan, maybe she did care and now she doesn't. Like, why is that not a possibility? I would argue not only is it possible, it's probably the norm, right? Veganism is inconvenient. It can be socially awkward. You aren't rewarded for it. Again, to use that word, you don't get to meet and shake the hands of the animals you save. Like, it's, of course people are going to stop caring. It could also just be that his world is smaller now, right? He has kids. Sometimes that makes people less caring of other people, certainly less caring of animals. The end of the video too, where he talks about Seaspiracy and says he basically still agrees with the sustainability message, the protecting the ocean message. He makes no mention of animal welfare, which is so strange to me because that was my big issue with Seaspiracy, is that it's kind of a bait and switch, right? It's all about sustainability until the end, when then it's like, no, but really animals and animal pain. And like, of course I agree with that, right? But I don't really like the whole pretending that we don't know all of these things, the directors and whatever, they don't know any of this and they're just learning. And then, oh yeah, fish feel pain. It's just weird. It's like making this whole argument for environmentalism, but really that's not why they're vegan. That's not why I'm vegan. I don't know. I just don't like those type of documentaries. It's very telling that he makes it seem as though the documentary really is just about sustainability, and that he has no problem with someone just fishing every once in a while because it's not unsustainable. It doesn't hurt the ocean or other animals. That's his only concern, seemingly.
If you really pushed me hard, I think, I'd concede to, if you're someone that has a canoe and you have a fishing rod and you go to a place where it isn't frequented by a lot of recreational fishermen or industrial fishing or a lot of tourism, and you're just someone who goes out there and catches, just your average sort of common fish, and you eat that for, a meal, I think the impact that you're having on the ocean is so negligible and so tiny that it's just, there's no real big sort of environmental concerns for any of that kind of stuff.
It's just impossible for me not to view this video as a huge step away from animal welfare for him. Hopefully I'm wrong. I really do hope I'm wrong. There are just so many signs. The vibe here is so wrong. He's obviously getting and believing in so much other conservative propaganda, like a lot of smoke here. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you got something out of this. I hope it wasn't too long. After complaining about how long his video was, I'm sure this one, it's definitely long. I've got like 10 pages of notes, so sorry, but I hope you did enjoy it. Please do like and subscribe. It really does help out the channel. And of course, supporting me with moolah also helps out the channel. Thank you so much to my members here on YouTube and on Patreon for doing that, for supporting the channel. Patreon.com/unnaturalvegan. I do post 2 exclusive videos a month. One is just a vlog talking about, whatever is going on, kids and all that sort of stuff. And then the second one is like a controversial topic, something unrelated to veganism. Occasionally I do something that's a little more fun, like this last video, because I had sickness and IUD, all sorts of stuff going on. I did just like reacting to my saves on Instagram, mostly wholesome animal videos. But yeah, that is it for me. Thanks again, guys. New video soon. Oh, he actually misrepresents the 84% statistic. I just made that video. Is that what I called it? Most misused statistic. In the article, he says like 84% of vegans abandon the diet. The study was looking at vegans and vegetarians, but yeah, I just thought that was funny because I just made that video.
If you're a parent watching this, you'll probably empathize with this situation a lot more than if you're childless and you're watching this as a vegan activist.
Is it just me, or is there some like disdain? I don't know. The way he says childless, maybe it's just the accent, but I don't know. It made me like, oh, and I'm not childless. Speaking of kids, it's interesting the number of vegans who have kids and are no longer vegan, seemingly with the kids maybe playing some sort of role. It's really interesting to me because if anything, I think my kids have radicalized me further. That might actually play a role too in my like disgust of animal products, because my kids, like even like Carmine, they're just like, oh, what? Whereas previously it was like, whatever, whatever. Okay, it has Carmine. Oops, I'll eat it. And now I'm just like, yeah, fuck. Yeah, gross. And it's not just yuck factor. Again, hearing about my 6-year-old being at a social thing as a little 6-year-old and being like, I'm not sure, so I'm not going to participate in this fun thing. Like, I'm not going to get candy, my favorite food, candy. That is just, I'm not going to cry. That's just so inspiring to me. Oh, shit. And my 8-year-old, too, just always like, yeah, it's the wrong thing to do, so I'm not going to do it. Like, I know better, so I'm going to do better. I think it's really strengthened my veganism, if anything.